The word resilience has become so frequently used that I almost didn't use it in this book. But it is exactly the right word for what can help you change your life for the better. Better physical and emotional health, better relationships with family and friends, and better success at work. You're entitled to that. The common meaning of resilience is the ability to bounce back. But I prefer this definition: the ability to move forward and be generative after challenges. The latter goes beyond bouncing back to bouncing forward. Doesn't that sound better? A profound story of resilience. A story from my work in Kenya illustrates this second form of resilience. It starts in a camp for displaced persons, about a 3-hour drive from Nairobi. People who didn't have enough to eat or drink, covered with the dust of parched, inhospitable earth, filled the camp. A human rights organization asked me to go to this part of Kenya after a government election that spawned a lot of post-election violence. Government officials worried that more people would be badly injured if they remained in their villages. In an effort to stop the violence, which included horrible machete injuries and deaths, the government paid a small sum of money to any villager who agreed to relocate to one of several large tented camps for displaced people. I had been doing this practical neuroscience-based work nationally in the U.S. and internationally for many years. I worked with the villagers in these camps to help them process the fear and trauma they were experiencing as a result of the violence. My team worked in 3 camps. The first 2 were in big, flat, dusty fields of nothingness. Nothing grew. No trees for shade, no grass. There was nothing except 100 or so tents. And there was nothing for anyone to do. No playgrounds for kids or exercise areas for adults. People just wandered around, waiting for the water truck and food delivery. Life in these camps was extremely bleak. But the third camp was strikingly different. Every tent had a green garden growing out of the dust. Hoses were connected to a water truck, and some of that water was used to create vegetable gardens. The camp also had a large school tent, and smaller tents were microfinance projects that enabled individuals and groups to develop work that paid them, took place. This included the sale of beautiful hand-woven baskets. I bought one to bring home. I was startled at the difference in this third camp and asked my local contact why it was so different. She told me that the government had paid each villager, for all 3 camps, the same small fee to persuade them to relocate. In the first 2 camps, the people took the money and held on to it. But in the third camp, they pooled their money, and with that much larger sum, they purchased the land the camp was on. Their ownership of the land motivated them to plan for the future, to plant gardens, make and sell baskets, and get involved in other microfinance projects. They had formed a governing structure to foster group decision-making. They were selling baskets and vegetables to buy a bus to take the children to school and transport women to the hospital to safely birth their babies. Are you wondering what the kind of resilience I'm describing in the story about Kenya has to do with you? I'll tell you. We know from neuroscience, the scientific study of what the brain requires to do its very best, that when people respond with fear to life's challenges, it affects their health, their relationships, and even their capacity to think clearly. The people in the first 2 camps were making fear-based decisions. They didn't trust one another, had very little hope, and felt dependent on government officials for their physical and financial security. Conversely, in Camp 3, a small group of people had come together, determined to create something better for the entire community. First, they met to generate a bunch of ideas. Then they reached out to others in the community to get them interested in joining the efforts. As word spread throughout the camp that some exciting plans were being discussed, more and more people wanted to be part of the partnership effort. Instead of fear, they felt excitement and determination.